This is the Fascia Fix, with Nellen and Justin Kroll, exploring the body's most overlooked system to find healing from chronic pain and trauma. They're here to educate and empower you through fascia science, real stories, and self-healing tools. So, tune in, open your mind, and let's fix what's been broken.
Welcome to the Fascia Fix, where we explore fascia, the connective tissue web that supports every single structure in your body.
We're here to blend science, story, and self-healing, giving you practical tools and thoughtful conversations about physical pain, trauma, nervous system regulation, and holistic wellness.
Our mission is simple: help you stop chasing symptoms and start healing the root causes of your pain. I'm Nellen.
And I'm Justin.
So today's episode, we're going to explore a little bit about retreats. You've probably either seen somebody posting about a retreat on your social media, or maybe you've been to one yourself. But we know that this business is growing. It is approaching nearly $400 billion of the retreat wellness industry globally.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen things online for yoga retreats, silent meditative retreats, retreats for, goat yoga, all kinds of crazy things, right? But it's about taking a moment to remove yourself from your normal environment and really focus on yourself without the extra distractions.
Yeah, what we love about retreats is that it's really shifted focus in the past few years from being about taking a weekend away and having a little vacation, and more so about really going inwards, connecting with yourself, and finding some real healing.
Mm.
In a typical therapeutic setting, when a patient or a client would come to see us, they might come once a week, they might come twice a week for a certain period of time, and they go back to their daily lives after they leave our office, and then they come back the next week. And to some extent, it does feel a little bit like starting over again each time, which is why I think that retreats have such a huge potential for providing just that little bit more.
Mm-hmm. What we often see is the first 10, 15 minutes of appointment feel almost like you're trying to make up for that lost ground from the previous week, right? It's kind of like this: you have a breakthrough, you feel like you move through a movement pattern that was achy, tight, uncomfortable, and then you have a backslide where you go and you implement it into your day-to-day life, and it works, or kind of works, and hopefully, as long as you can stay really focused on the process and the long-term goal, you get ultimately where you want to go, but it takes some time, right? What if it was possible to speed that up? And that's where the retreat idea comes in, by creating a condensed program where you don't really have the opportunity to have the backslide, because if you do feel like you're not getting where you need to go, you're still in the experience for someone to help pick you up and keep you moving through, right? So it's very difficult to hold on to your thoughts, feelings, emotional and physical barriers in your body when you're constantly challenging them and moving in different ways.
Yeah, and I think we've all gotten like really great bits of advice in any kind of rehabilitative setting or wellness setting, or even from our doctors. And, they give us this great advice and we're so committed to it in that moment. And then we go home and the distractions of our daily life get in the way. And sometimes some of us are really good at implementing it and continuing to follow that advice in a way that we can do from home. But for a lot of people, it does tend to fall off after a period of time. And I think that's where we kind of get stuck in these patterns of like recurring pain and issues that don't seem to go away, and people describing something like having a bad back or a bad neck. And it's not necessarily there's anything wrong. They don't have a bad back or bad neck, but sometimes it's these patterns that we get stuck in.
And the issue is you have motivation, but motivation ebbs and flows, right? Sometimes you hope it's there and it's just not. And then you end up stuck in your old patterns and your old thinking and feeling. But what we all have at our core is a desire, something really strong that we want, a way we want to feel, a way we want to move. It's usually around those things that really matter to us, the people we want to spend time with, the activities we want to do and enjoy.
And so for those people who don't feel like they're getting any traction, sometimes doing something like a retreat might be just that one thing, the catalyst that sort of gets you going into a pattern, a good pattern, a pattern where you're not backsliding anymore.
The idea of the retreat and that immersive experience is so ingrained into the myofascial release approach that it's actually built into the training. In order to become an expert level myofascial release therapist through John Barnes' approach, you need to participate in what's called a therapy for the therapist, where you are the patient at one of the treatment centers working through your own symptoms and things that you're dealing with. And then you also are responsible for participating as a therapist in those same retreat experiences as well. And let me tell you, there is a lot of magic walking into a treatment room and being treated by 4 or 5 therapists at the same time. It is wild.
It is. In our practice, we run something called a myofascial intensive program. And it's similar in concept in that it is 5 days in a row of continuous treatment, whereby you get minimum of 3 to 4 hours of treatment per day in consecutive sessions. And for a lot of people, that might sound a little crazy, honestly. You would never necessarily see your physiotherapist that frequently in 1 week. But because our approach is that gentle, sustained pressure myofascial approach, it really works.
Even if you are feeling achy or sore with therapy, when it's applied gently rather than forcefully, what you're feeling is the therapeutic response. We sometimes describe it as like a healing crisis. It's this idea that the body is feeling a shift or change. It's not necessarily sure it's happy with it yet. So one of the values of having multiple treatment sessions at the same day, let alone in the same week, is that you start to create a safe space to feel into your system, and that what might have initially been a little bit of agitation in the body starts to settle and smooth out and become something that feels comfortable to exist in.
And when we get to spend that amount of time with you, it really does allow our clients to feel seen, feel heard, feel like for the first time often that someone really understands what they're going through.
Yeah, having an intensive experience is like having a vacation for your body. And I tell this to clients all the time. Everyone deserves to have that kind of experience at least once in their life.
I agree. So let's get into retreats. We want to talk a little bit today about what they are, who they're for, and what you might actually get out of them. So after this, we're going to bring on our guest who's going to share all about his wonderful retreat center. So we've actually had an opportunity to go on a couple of retreats ourselves, and we've even been invited to lead a couple.
That's right. Just this last December, we were at a retreat center called Dimensions, which our guest today is going to be speaking more about. And it had just recently snowed. It was the first snowfall of the year. The drive up there was gorgeous, let alone the fact that once we got there, there was more than a foot of snow. They'd already cleared all the pathways, the lights and everything. We're lighting the path to the geodome where we were doing our sessions. The food was absolutely delicious, prepared on site by professional chefs, and it was all gluten-free, no processed sugar, the whole works. It was truly a retreat for your mind, your body, your gut. The whole experience was amazing.
Yeah, you could really tell that they put a lot of thought into every little detail about the place. And I think that is also something that a really good retreat center will do, is think about every aspect of the guest experience. And certainly when we were there, that is how I felt. At no point did I ever feel like I wasn't thought about in every little detail, just from the rooms themselves to the dining area to the therapist that they've chosen to be part of their team. It really does feel like they put it there just for you.
At no point do you ever feel like you are a burden to staff if you need something. And quite frankly, most everything you needed was already available to you.
Yeah. In fact, we've used a few of their sort of principles, guiding principles, to improve our own business, because we want people to feel just as special when they come through our doors. So let's take a moment to introduce our guest, Donald Currie. So Donald Currie is a registered psychotherapist and the clinical director at Dimensions Retreats. They focus on healing through somatic and trauma therapies, particularly within the context of psychedelic-assisted therapy.
He integrates various evidence-based modalities that you may know, like EMDR and internal family systems therapy, alongside complementary wellness practices.
Dimensions Retreats, where Donald works, is a facility specializing in restorative well-being practices and transformational growth through a combination of therapeutic modalities and luxury hospitality. Welcome to the show, Donald.
Hello, thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here today, and I'm very excited to be with both of you and have this discussion.
We're excited too. We have had the pleasure of meeting you in person and coming to Dimensions, and it was an amazing experience.
I have to say, the facilities, the warmth, the people there, you've created and curated a fantastic experience for people to heal. I even took a little piece of your shoreline home with me that I sometimes carry in my pocket when I need a little extra boost, because I remember very fondly the experience we had with you.
That's so beautiful. And thank you so much for that feedback. You know, it's been a labor of love for everyone involved. We have over 110 people on our team now. And I've been with the organization since it was just an idea, before we even incorporated. And the whole process of developing the environment and hiring the team and making sure that it was a space where people could truly feel safe and experience deep healing has been a passion that we all share. So I'm glad that came through in your experience here.
Yeah. We know what that's like too, in creating our own sort of healing practice. But it is just such a beautiful, beautiful place that you have there. And I mean, you picked a great spot. It is
definitely
actually where Justin spent all of his summers as a kid.
Yeah, my family has a cottage just down the road. So, you know, that lake is special for me anyway. And then, you know, having that, basically we were first introduced to Dimensions by driving by it and being like, hey, I wonder what that is. Wasn't that the old bed and breakfast property? And then, you know, Google search, a little bit more information. We were lucky enough to connect with you. Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, it was great having you here. So hope you'll be back again soon.
So let's get into our discussion for today. Our first question that we have for you, we want to talk about obviously your experience as a psychotherapist and working with people and taking them through their healing journey. Typically, when people are going through a hard time in life or they experience trauma, they often turn to psychotherapy or, you know, quote unquote, talk therapy. But even after doing that, sometimes people feel a bit stuck in their patterns or still unable to access deeper healing. Your approach as a psychotherapist and as a healer goes way beyond just talking through problems. And as myofascial release therapist, we love that. So I wonder, why do you feel it is important to offer more than talk therapy?
Talk therapy can be helpful, right? At a certain point in people's journey, usually in the beginning, talk therapy is very helpful in helping people to understand where they've been, to understand the patterns, to have discussions around, you know, their experiences in life and where they are now. Talk therapy can help give people tools, but it's what we consider a top-down approach, a cognitive approach. Now, trauma doesn't live only in the brain as a memory. It lives in the body and the nervous system. And so the approach that I take is I integrate some talk therapy, but I take a top-down, bottom-up approach, integrating the body into the process of healing. When we experience a trauma, we go into a state of fight, flight, freeze, feign death, or collapse. And that gets locked into the body and the nervous system. And so people get stuck in this loop of fight, flight, freeze oftentimes. If that's not addressed through somatic therapy, we can't address it through talk therapy alone. We can't think our way out of trauma. We have to address it within the body and the nervous system. And that's where somatic therapy comes in, is it allows us to work with the trauma that is stored in the body and the nervous system. Trauma gets stored in the fascia, in the tissue, in the cells, in the organs. And so there's different processes that we have with somatic therapy that help us to assist the client in regulating their body and their nervous system first, and then going in and reprocessing those traumatic experiences and sequencing that fight, flight, freeze out of the nervous system so that they can return to a down-regulated state, which is where they feel safe in their physical body once again. So it is a process, but that's the work that I do. And what we witness, we work with military veterans that have been in talk therapy for years. And many of them have not had the somatic approach, and it's usually a game changer for them. Right. Oftentimes in a 10-day veteran program, when people leave, their symptoms are vastly reduced, and more often than not. And it's truly remarkable to witness. You know, where they come in and then where they leave.
Yeah, we couldn't agree with you more. In our personal experience in our office with myofascial release therapy, the best way I can put it is the way a patient put it online once. It was, when bad things happen, the mind leaves the body, so the trauma happens to a shell. There's this dissociation that occurs for survival, right? And it's essentially this idea of, if you can't find a way back home into your own physicality, how can you possibly reconcile the experience with the sensation of it, the physical experience of it too?
100%. And I love what you just said about dissociation. I trained in something called structural dissociation theory, which is the study of how we dissociate from the body. Because the body, when we experience trauma, is not a safe place. And dissociation is simply the wisdom of our system. This is a very wise system. Dissociation is a strategy that helps us to survive. It doesn't help us to thrive in the long term. And so there's different methods that we also use in therapy and somatic therapy that help to treat the dissociation so that we can help people to safely land in their body once again, right?
So with that in mind, what happens when we engage the whole person, the mind, the body, the spirit in the healing process? What shifts become possible?
It's possible for, say, someone has symptoms of PTSD, hypervigilance, hyper-awareness, constantly scanning the environment for threats. When people start to feel safe once again, and we see this in the military veteran population quite regularly, is they'll say, and they'll oftentimes notice in retrospect, like sort of saying, oh, I notice that I'm not scanning the room anymore. I'm not scanning to see where the doors are. I'm able to sit with my back towards the door now, right? People start to notice that sleep improves. They're not having nightmares or night sweats. Teeth grinding. TMJ is often very common with people who have trauma. They'll notice that they're not grinding their teeth at night anymore, or they're not waking up through the night because the body is finally feeling safe. The other thing as well is the social engagement system is linked to our vagus nerve. And we want to be in connection with people when we're feeling safe. Oftentimes, when people have experienced trauma, there's isolation that happens. People don't want to connect with people in the same way as they do when they're feeling safe. So what we witness when people are going through their healing processes, oftentimes they want to connect with people once again, right? So these are just a couple of the things that we witness in the healing process for people, and it's truly remarkable. Another thing that happens is digestion improves. Right? With PTSD symptoms are directly linked to the gut and gut health. And so people can have a lot of digestive issues. Oftentimes, as the symptoms come down, digestion improves and overall well-being in the body improves.
So you mentioned vagus nerve. For anybody listening at home who's not aware of that term, it's basically the rest relax part of the nervous system. It's that idea of upregulating your body's natural ability to wind down and become calm. I agree with you completely. We've actually had clients, this one experience comes to mind where as I'm introducing myself to a client coming in the door, they're literally already walking past me into the treatment room. It's like they're already 2 steps ahead. And they were telling me the description was like there was a monkey's paw on their back, like they're just really, really stuck. So a technique that we did is we just dug gently into the diaphragm muscle and kind of scooped down and into that space while they're resting and leaning forward. And their breathing started to change. It started to get a little faster. They start to get sweaty. They're starting to hyperventilate a bit. And they went through this whole 5-minute experience of shedding of that physiological stress. And, you know, they sit up after and they're like, I can breathe. I feel great. Right.
That's amazing. So it's what you're doing is another form of somatic release, right? It's just you're using manipulation as opposed to the somatic internal psychotherapy that we're doing, essentially, right?
Yeah.
But it's addressing things in a similar way. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Donald. That was a really, really great description. I really appreciated how you gave us that perspective too. We do tend to come at it obviously from like the physical perspective. And so we love to integrate all of these things, and we really appreciate that sharing that you just gave us. I'd love to know too what your thoughts are on a multi-day healing experience. Obviously, when we see clients, it's sometimes one-off, but we do also offer longer sessions. But with your business specifically at Dimensions, you're looking to kind of immerse people in healing. So tell us a little bit about how stepping into that experience is different from a more traditional approach.
So I'd like to take you back to when I had my private practice in Toronto. So I had individual private practice where I would see clients once per week. A lot can happen in a week. Right? Yep. And so people would come in, you have that session, you equip them with, different tools, you do some processing, they return home out into the wild of Toronto. And then when they come back the next week, there's a lot that has happened that you usually need to get caught up on. And then by the time you get to some processing, maybe you have 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the session to really get into some deep work. And then the person would leave. And that's the cycle is that once per week. I also worked at an outpatient facility in Toronto for mental health and addiction called Helix Healthcare Group. And we had people for 30 days. That's how long our programs were. But they would go home every night. And what I learned is there can be a lot that happens in one night as well. Right? So people would go home after a day of therapy and there would be some daily life stressor that would happen that could potentially derail their therapeutic process. And then when they came back in the next morning, it's like you're starting again in re-regulating the nervous system. So the retreat environment has always been very intriguing to me because we are retreating. We're taking someone out of their day-to-day stress where they can truly let themselves relax and be held in this container of safety and support where they don't have to worry about anything. They can focus on their healing process. And what we know now, neuroscience is showing that when we're in a safe environment, the neural nets within the brain and body and nervous system open and stay open in a safe environment like we have built at Dimensions. When someone's coming in for that weekly therapy session, the neural nets are maybe open for 20 minutes at the end of the session, and then they close back down again. And, with the outpatient that we were doing, maybe the neural nets were open a couple of hours a day, and then, they close back down again as people go out into the world. So the work that can happen in a retreat environment over 5, 10, 14 days, which are the different lengths of our programs, people can work at a much deeper level, and the impact of that is going to be more long-standing. It's also more expedited as well because we're able to work at deeper levels of the brain, body, and nervous system than we are in those weekly sessions. By the end, in our massage therapists, this is not only for psychotherapy, but also our massage therapists as well, because people go in for a massage, say, once a week. right? There's a lot of tension that gets built up in the body again by the next session. What a lot of people report is that their pain levels are non-existent at the end of the 10-day retreats. They feel like they've been able to work out old injuries in a way that they haven't with just the once a week sessions. So in a contained environment where there's no outside modern stresses, it's a very inoculated environment. People can go much deeper into their healing process.
Yeah, I agree. We've seen that too in our practice. You're right. Sometimes that once a week, it really just doesn't work for people. There's a lot of distraction, and you're right. A lot can happen in a week in that time. And so we also have a program it's sort of an intensive program where people come in for treatment every day for a few hours for 5 days in a row, and they can do that for multiple weeks in a row. Yeah. Typically, they come to see us from out of town, although sometimes people are from the area. And it makes such a huge difference in, I think, maybe just their commitment to the process, right? Like they're not just committing 1 hour. When they think of it as committing 1 week, there's so much more potential there, I want to say.
A lot of people, don't necessarily put a value on time, but it's when you commit time to yourself to feel into and challenge the thoughts, feelings, emotional patterns, physical patterns, right? It's huge.
I wholeheartedly agree.
So one thing that really resonates with us in our practice is that healing doesn't happen in isolation. And you touched on this earlier. When people start to come out of their shell, when they start to get a little bit of that healing, they want to connect with other people. And so at Dimensions, you use that as an actual tool for healing, it seems like. So can you share how being surrounded by others that are also on similar healing paths creates something that individual therapy sessions might not be able to achieve?
Yes. So in individual therapy, many people feel like they're isolated and alone, and they feel like they're the only ones that are experiencing what they're experiencing. With group work, what I often witness is people hearing the stories of others. They recognize that these are human experiences, that every human being on the face of the earth experiences some kind of suffering. What we witness as well is the support that each of the guests that we have through our program begins to offer other guests, right? Other participants in the program. They start to really rally around each other and support one another. And for a lot of people, that's a reparative experience. Early life development, oftentimes people experience trauma, right? Maybe they don't have their needs met. Maybe they're not listened to, or they're teased, or they're bullied. There can be many different experiences that people have. And most people don't have 100% of an ideal experience in life. And when we're in groups, neuroscience is showing that there's 3 components that are needed in order to reshape the brain, body, and nervous system. And that is a safe container, which we built at Dimensions, but it goes beyond that. It's the safe container with having rules of engagement, how we're going to interact with one another, and we establish all of that. The second component is being witnessed by a caring other person or caring other people. And the third is having a new felt experience in the body. If those 3 components are there, something's going to happen. Something's going to shift, and something is going to change. And what we hear from people is being seen by others and supported is like the healing balm, right?
Love that. Yeah.
That's what helped me to heal, is because I recognized that I wasn't alone. I recognized there are good people in the world, that there can be safety. And that begins to rewrite the old story, right? And it also rewrites the brain, body, and nervous system, right? We start to feel safe. We start wanting to connect with other people. And it also gives people a model. It teaches people what to look for in the world. Because when we experience trauma, we start to look at the world through a very specific set of lenses, right? And so a lot of people have a hard time seeing the good in people or trusting people. And when they have that new experience of being supported, it's like, maybe I can trust. Maybe there are people in the world who are good and caring, right? So community and healing in community is also, it's not new. This is what we've been doing for thousands of years. We just live in a society where, unfortunately, modern society has become very fragmented, very isolated. And I believe that right now there is a need for us to return to a sense of community. And that is what is going to help this planet at this time, right?
Yes.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. As a follow-up question, you mentioned your own healing experience, and I know that I've had my own as well, and so has Nellen. Can you tell our audience a little bit about your first experience with an intensive type program?
Yeah. So I've had many experiences with intensive type programs, and part of my therapy training has been intensive therapies. I did a 4-year program in something called relational somatic psychotherapy, which was led by 2 of my mentors and teachers, Jeff Turner and Michael Seek, who are no longer with us, but they were incredible teachers. And it would be intensive psychotherapy and intensive training and group processes. And this is really how I learned a lot about somatic psychotherapy and the different approaches. And that process was like taking myself apart at a very deep level and putting myself back together again.
Yeah.
And I loved it because it helped me to understand what it's like to be the client. Right. And I will always do my own work until the end of my life. I think that as therapists, we have to continue to do our own work and grow, because that's what's going to help our clients to grow. And it helps us to understand what it feels like to be in the client's chair.
Yes.
It was not always easy. There were those moments where, I wanted to, walk to the left of the building I was about to go in, to take a course. But I kept going, right? I always sought that discomfort because I knew that it meant that was where I needed to be. Right. Yeah.
And that there's something better on the other side.
That's right. And when you start to see the benefits of this work, then it's like, it's motivating. We want to do more of it. Right. Yeah. And I've been to other intensives as well. I've been to retreat programs and it's not only the mind, it's the body, it's the spirit, it's the emotions, it's doing the yoga and eating the healthy food and going for walks and spending time in nature and meditating and playing an instrument. It's not just one thing. It is many things. And in those many things, that's where we find our wholeness and our completeness.
I agree. And I think that you would probably agree too, that it's not something that you just sort of start and then stop. It's an ongoing process, right?
Healing at its core is not a destination, it's a journey.
Exactly.
I wholeheartedly agree with that, right? And there's no such thing as healed.
Yes.
Right? Because we are always on that trajectory of healing. And I like to use the countertop analogy. It's like you get your countertop all nice and clean and perfect, but then someone comes along and makes a sandwich and there's crumbs all over the place and you have to wipe it every day, right? Yep. So it's a constant state. And what happens is our resilience gets better. We're able to bounce back from things a lot quicker. We're able to manage our stress a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
And when we heal as well, we talk a lot about post-traumatic stress, but we don't talk about post-traumatic growth. That when we heal, are in that process of healing our trauma, there's gifts in that. We develop wisdom, knowledge, and people who have experienced the most intense traumas are oftentimes the most kind, thoughtful, heartfelt, gentle, compassionate human beings on the face of the earth when they transcend out of it. So I think that gives us a lot of hope as a humanity, right?
So you mentioned the word transcend, and I know that Dimensions has a number of programs that you run to help people with their healing. Can you tell us a little bit more about them?
Yes, we have many programs, and we are actually right in the middle of a new program that I'll tell you about in a moment that we just launched. We have our wellness retreats. Wellness programs there's no psychotherapy, there's no plant medicine. Those are solely focused on coming up, enjoying the property, having a massage, eating the food. We sometimes have special guests up who run breathwork sessions or myofascial sessions. Because you were, I believe, two of the facilitators at one of our wellness retreats before. So that is our wellness program. Then we have Ascend. Ascend is a 5-day program for people with mild to moderate mental health symptoms. That can just be the stresses of daily living. It could also be mild depression or mild anxiety or mild PTSD symptoms. But it is a 5-day program that incorporates cannabis as a plant medicine, as well as massage therapy, psychotherapy, breath work, hot and cold exposure therapy, meditation, sound therapy, and sound healing. We have our Elevate program, which is for veterans, and we are now expanding that to police officers and first responders. And that is a 10-day program that incorporates everything in our 5-day program. There's just more of it. And we have just launched as of this Wednesday. We currently have a group of individuals here right now, a group of guests, our Elevate Plus program. And our Elevate Plus program is for individuals that are experiencing moderate to severe mental health symptoms. And it is a more therapy intensive program with more somatic psychotherapy, plant medicine work, hot and cold exposure therapy, and breath work to help people reduce those symptoms.
Wonderful. And I also know, because I listened to it and it was fantastic, that you are also the voice of the Dimensions podcast.
Yes, that's correct.
Remind me, the name is
Retreat, Reset, Transform. Perfect. Is the name of the podcast. Yeah. And it's available on our website. It's also available on iTunes and Spotify and wherever else you can get a podcast, I think.
Wonderful. I would highly recommend, obviously, checking out Dimensions. We've been there ourselves and it was absolutely beautiful. And the experience there was exactly as you've described.
Yeah. Even just, Donald mentioned the food a few times. I have to say that they're chefs on site cooking meals for you. They are amazing. We did a cooking class when we were there one time, and I've actually made that meal now 2 or 3 times since then, and it's so good every time.
Yeah,
so
we've made it for friends, and they're impressed too, so it makes us feel good.
And if you can believe it, the food keeps getting better. And I don't know how they're doing it, but they're constantly like adjusting, and they are like even more incredible than when you were in.
Well, I think
so not to hype our food up, but yeah.
Yeah, the impression I get too is in a similar way as the way we treat our patients. They approach that with the guests who come there too. They're constantly looking to better themselves in order to give a great experience to the guests, just like we try to better ourselves as therapists. to improve the experience for our clients and also to help them with their healing. So that's the impression I get. They're not just there to cook food. They're there as part of the healing.
That's right. And everything is focused on gut health, brain health. There's no refined sugars. Everything is organic wherever possible. And there's, I think I said no refined sugar, and there's no gluten in any of our food. And the desserts that they're coming up with, it's like, how is this gluten free? And yeah, it's magical what they're doing in the kitchen. So
it really is. Yes.
Yeah.
And if I can encourage anyone, I mean, of course, this destination is just beautiful. But if you don't get a chance to go right away, definitely listen to the podcast that you've begun to create, because the messages there are so important, more than we can fit in an episode here. But the way that you speak about trauma and help people understand that, and the value of retreat and what you focus on with respect to healing, I think that it's a lot of things that people don't totally understand or have never really thought about that way before.
And, when we think of trauma, we think of the big things like assaults, abuse, accidents. And then people say, well, I don't have trauma, but there's little t trauma as well. And we go into that in the podcast in greater depth, in really understanding no one gets off scot-free, that we all have something, right? We might not call it trauma, but there's those early life experiences that we have that can be impactful, right? And it's just understanding ourselves at a deeper level, and then being able to utilize different practices that are going to help us to reset our central nervous system, right? And live in a state of rest and digest, right?
Yeah. It's like you like to say, Justin, learning to come home to yourself.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's beautiful. Yeah.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Donald.
And thank you so much for hosting me today. And hopefully we'll see you up here again real soon.
Looking forward to it.
Look forward to it for sure.
If you want to learn more about myofascial release and learn more about us, you can head to our website, dropintohealing.com. And you can find us on social media at Myofascial Canada on all of the social channels. If you head to Spotify, you will find a replay of this episode, The Fascia Fix, and you can find the information for our guests and any of the other information that we share on these episodes in the links in the description.
You've been listening to The Fascia Fix with Nellen and Justin Krull. If you want to be a guest on the show or have a topic or feedback, DM us at Myofascial Canada on Instagram or TikTok. Thanks for listening.